It's on the news. The new Mars probe by the European Space Agency has crashed onto the surface of Mars. This is Monterey, and welcome to my cosmic kingdom. The Schiaparelli probe was a joint venture between the European Space Agency and the Russian Space Agency just to land something on Mars and investigating what is going on there. It consisted in two different probes. One that is orbiting Mars, and that one is fine, and another one that was going to descend into Mars and just acquiring more data. The thing is that this last one didn't work. This last one was called Schiaparelli, after the Italian that observed Mars in the 19th century. Basically, it crashed. Roughly at 120 kilometers above the surface of Mars, the Schiaparelli should have entered the atmosphere, and during 1 minute and 12 seconds, it has a heat shield that protects the probe from the heat generated of the thing entering the atmosphere and the friction and things like that. But at roughly around 45 kilometers above the surface of Mars, because it's falling, it's just getting faster and faster and faster, and obviously you don't want it to crash on the ground. The probe has a parachute that opens and starts sliding, and this obviously slows down the descent. And then roughly after 4 minutes from the beginning, this heat shield was supposed to be released, because it waits, and you don't want it to be close to the landing site, so it moves away, and the thing keeps on gliding down to the atmosphere, and then roughly at 5 minutes 21 seconds the parachute separates, and then you just use the thrusters. Approximately during 30 seconds, use the thrusters built in just to do the last leg of the trip. What has been going on, they say it's a software glitch, and supposedly the parachute opened a minute too early. That means that the atmosphere is thin, is very thin there, and the parachute is not making enough work to slow down the probe. Somehow the probe thought that it was going to be closer to the ground, and the thrusters only operated for a few seconds instead of for the 30 seconds, and obviously this crash. NASA has released this footage that shows the place where the actual Schiaparelli probe has crashed. So we have the data before and after, and we can see just a blurry, burnt area where probably the Schiaparelli has crashed. So I'm sad, because I would have loved that this thing goes on properly and just opens a new world of data for us scientists. For me, this is not as difficult as the Rosetta mission, because Mars has like a strong gravitational field. It's 1/3 of the Earth, but it's still strong. It's not like landing on a comet where things really do not weigh practically anything, and that was what the Rosetta happened, that it kept on just rebounding, to Philly, not to Rosetta. But even though it's in Mars, these things are really difficult. They're like hundreds of thousands of kilometers away, and even just sending a signal to open something takes a few minutes to arrive there. So the probe has to be self-contained and self-managed, because there is no way that you can just using some joystick control it, because whatever you do is going to happen like 8 minutes later, where the probe is on the ground. But I think as a small criticism for the ESA and the Russians is that the Americans have landed safely 3 rovers on Mars. Now I'm going to take up my astrophysics hat, and I'm going to put my engineer hat, and I think the main issue is the Americans started by sending a very, very small robot, which was the Sojourner, with a small payload, which is easier, and they use very reliable computers and probably very simple code. And obviously it's easier to slow down something that is smaller than something that is really big. And that's it, they did it in baby steps. Obviously sending a small robot to Mars is just pointless now. if you allow me the analogy, it's like trying to build a jet plane without having done a propeller one, and that is tricky. So anyway, good job to the ESA. At least they have the orbiter there, and keep on working, guys. I have read online that the probe the Schiaparelli is sending some data. I don't know if that is reliable, but stay tuned. Follow me on my YouTube channel and social networks, and see you guys next week. Bye bye.